everyone. This is Jeff Harry with Rediscover Your Play.
And I'm Teshone Jones with Fenyx Consulting. And today we are excited to share with you something that is really important to us and really important in this moment. So our proposal, Coloring Outside the Lines, Developing Anti-Racist Workspaces, is a really important tool in being a part of dismantling a system that led to a George Floyd or a Breonna Taylor. In this moment with the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the conversation about how we as a society and as a community can show up for addressing racism and eradicating racism, then, Jeff and I have come together to create an offering that really incorporates having difficult conversations, but also the experience of play so that we can begin to unpack this really difficult issue that has really torn our country apart and piece things back together in a way that incorporates all of us in a way and all of our voices so that people are heard, seen, and that our work is impactful and mindful. And so, yeah.
So our workshop series is designed to inspire attendees. I'll say that part again. So our workshop series is designed to inspire attendees to delve deep into their own unconscious bias, address the personal, interpersonal, cultural, and systemic issues around racism in the workplace, and emerge with a proactive plan to dismantle systemic racism within the sphere of the influence within the organization. And the reason why we're using play to do it is so that not only are we, talking about it intellectually, so that not only are we talking about it intellectually, we're actually experiencing these workshops and being able to apply this after taking these workshops and creating a more anti-racist environment in the workplace.
So our first workshop, How Do We Get Here? Understanding and Unpacking Racist Socialization, is meant to help us understand some of our personal relationships with racism. And so whether we know it or not, each one of us has developed an understanding of race that comes out of our individual experiences. And so what we want to do through this workshop is to take participants in and basically make them investigators of their own experience, just to begin to unpack and observe without bias some of the things that have shaped their biases and understandings about race.
So some of the learning objectives that we want participants to experience is first identifying experiences that shape their views on race to begin with, and then observe and name those experiences without judgment from a non-judgmental place, because we are trying to create a safe space to have this conversation. And then third is understand their beliefs and biases, almost in a malleable sort of way, like Play-Doh, rather than a creation that has been etched in stone.
Okay. So really the whole point behind this workshop is to help us to create a space for us to see everybody is impacted by this socialization around race. Not one of us has been untouched by it. And so the first step to beginning to dismantle racism is to identify how we even came up with some of these ideas and biases that we have in the first place. All right. So once we've had a chance to think about and explore how we began to develop these ideas about race from our own individual experiences, then our second workshop is really taking us into examining privilege. And so we think of privilege as like a playground, so just like a playground, there are people that are using the playground, but then there are all types of equipment, and there are rules, and there are unspoken, norms about how we engage with the playground. And so what we want to do is to bring to light, what does this playground look like, and where are different people situated on the playground, right? What people have access to certain kinds of equipment that other people may not have access to. Some people might be able to get on the slide, and other people, like, they're standing there looking at the slide because they're not able to, go up the slide, right? And so in the same way that, a playground is a place where children explore and kind of enact, like, their ideas and their creativity, then the workplace is very similar. It's a playground. And if we're not aware of how we interact with the playground, then sometimes we can take privilege and we can take power away from others. And so this workshop is helping us become more mindful of that privilege, and understanding how do we unpack that and develop more shared power frameworks.
So some of the learning objectives that we want to accomplish from the Exploring the Privilege Playground workshop for attendees and actually have them experience through play is recognizing and then unpacking the different experiences of privilege. And then second, identify the ways that privilege and lack of privilege shape the landscape of our experiences, particularly in the workplace. And then finally, we want to determine how they can use their privilege and power for good in order to break the cycle of systemic racism on their team or within the organization. And we do that through the lens of play.
So now that we've had a chance to explore what is the playground and what does it look like, and all the different actors that are on the playground and the equipment and how we engage with it, and how privilege works in this way, we're transitioning into becoming more mindful of how we engage interpersonally in this discussion and this conversation about race. And whether we know it or not, this conversation is always happening, whether it is explicit or implicit. And so it's important for us to be able to have these conversations explicitly, to be able to support our colleagues and support our staff who are experiencing a difference in power, and both unpacking within ourselves, how we're showing up to our interpersonal relationships, and also bringing to the table an opportunity for others that may be a part of our sphere of influence in the organization, how they can also be agents of change and bring in discussion and important conversation that helps us to break down, some of that conversation that's not happening, that needs to happen, so that we can all have a more equitable experience in the workplace.
And then some of the learning objectives that we want to accomplish, especially in the Mindful of Race workshop, is first, we want to learn how to actually create a safe space to have those difficult conversations about race, privilege, and power. Then we actually and this is part of the play part, is we want to get on-site practice on having these conversations. So you can feel what it feels like to be in a safe space while also talking about something that you find difficult to speak of. And then third, we want to figure out how to proactively lead through facilitating these conversations with our colleagues, with our team, and then ultimately with the organization.
And once we've had a chance to understand how do we engage in difficult conversations about race and privilege and power, now it's time for us to really assess the culture of the spaces that we are navigating. Sometimes we think about, like, the things that we do as set in stone, kind of like we talked about earlier with, how our unconscious biases seem like they're like a, stone rather than Play-Doh. But in a similar sense, the culture that we create at work is often like a coloring book, right? We have a little bit of a framework for how we take the crayon and what we color in and what colors we can use in certain places. But the reality is that we can create pages in coloring books that don't have lines, right? And that creates space for us to begin to co-create a culture that really challenges maybe some of the choices for coloring that could be harmful in our workplace. and reimagine our workspaces as places that really uphold a culture of anti-racism versus going with the old coloring book that maybe does not fit this time anymore in this space.
So, and then some of the learning objectives that then we want to accomplish with this one is really asking the question of like, what's possible? What is the type of organization that I want to work for, where we're actively or proactively taking on this anti-racism work? And it's infused in our work so that it creates a safe space for everyone to feel comfortable that they are part of this organization and that they actually belong. So that's like the main learning objective. And then the second objective is really then combining all of the workshops that we've basically building up to, from how did we get there to what is my privilege to how do we have those hard conversations, and consolidating them all together almost like a tool belt so that you can utilize this to change the culture of your team, to know that then you have the confidence to be like, I can have a hard conversation, I can check my privilege, I know that the internalized racism that I may have experienced, I don't need to continue that. And we want you to be able to take all that together and feel like you have the tools to really address racism in the workplace. Where someone asked, what if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year that we've been waiting for? And I think that is the question that every organization needs to ask, is like, is this the time and is this the moment in which we are going to be proactively anti-racist and create an environment where all of our employees not only feel comfortable to speak up, but to feel comfortable to lead. So we've created these workshops as a way for teams to flow through this as a team and grow together so that they come out on the other side seeing the humanity in each other.
So, all in all, our work together is all about showing up for this moment. This is a very important moment in which we have a choice. We have a choice to really examine the way that we've been showing up in the world and the way that we've been showing up in our workplaces. And from here, we can begin to, with intention and with attention, dismantle some of the systems that have persisted, that have led to different segments of our employees in different sectors of our population continuing to experience racism and oppression. And so in honor of George Floyd, in honor of Breonna Taylor, in honor of Ahmaud Arbery, we're doing this work to change the world in every way that we can, especially in the workplace. So you ready to do this work? Let's jump in.